Hello, in this tutorial I will teach you how to calculate probabilities using a binomial distribution in Excel, and also through the use of a binomial distribution table. Before we begin, you should find the binomial distribution table as one of the resources on the Learn website. Let's quickly review the binomial distribution. This distribution helps us determine the probability of future outcomes when there are two possible events that can happen. The equation form of the binomial distribution looks like this, where the probability of future success depends on n, the number of trials that we will do in the test, x, the number of successes that we are interested in, and p, the probability of success or the success rate which has been previously recorded. Typical examples of this include a coin toss. The example that we will use today is as follows. Waterloo Power has built a wind farm north of St. Jacobs to generate electricity. The wind farm is located in an area where 70% of the days are windy enough to generate a significant amount of electricity. Over the next week, or 7 days, what is the probability that the wind farm will generate significant electricity for less than 3 days, at least 5 days, or all of the days? So let's quickly go back to our equation, and from the question we can determine what n, x, and p are. So n is equal to 7. Our test is over the next 7 days, and each day is a trial. X is equal to less than 3, at least 5, or exactly 7 days. And we will do these tests separately. And p is equal to the probability of success, or the success rate, which is 0.70, equal to the percent of days that will have generated significant electricity. So let's go into a blank Excel spreadsheet. And in one column, we have all of our x values. And in the other column, we have the associated probabilities based on as a function of x. And we can type in our binomial distribution formula into Excel to help us calculate the probabilities for each value of x. So we'll start with our factorial of n, which is 7. You divide this by factorial of x, multiply by the factorial of n minus x, and then we're going to multiply this by p, which is 0.7, to the power of x, and then multiply this by 1 minus p to the power of n minus x, n minus x. I'm going to add a couple more brackets. We should be okay. And so we've calculated the probability for when x is equal to 0 is equal to 0.0002. And we can copy this formula down all of the rows in the column by clicking on the dot at the bottom right of the cell, clicking it, and then dragging this to the bottom of our column. And now we've calculated the probabilities for each value of x. And if you note, if we sum all of these probabilities, we should get 1. So in order to answer our questions, we need to read off of this table. The probability where we get 7 days of significant wind for electricity is easy. We can read where x is equal to 7, and that is equal to 0.0824. There we go. For less than 3 days, we're going to look for the probabilities for where x is less than 3, so that's where x is 0, x is 1, and x is 2. We add those together, and we got a probability of 0.0288. And for at least 5, we're going to take the probabilities where x is 5, x is 6, and x is 7. Add those together, and we get a probability of 0.6471. So we have calculated and answered this question based on our Excel spreadsheet. Now, sometimes someone has already done the math for you for the binomial distribution, and they've put these values for you in a table. And let's quickly see how we can read the binomial distribution table. So let's open up the file and go to the binomial distribution table. And we have some columns and rows that we can read from. So in the first column, we have n, and this is the number of trials in our test. X is in the second column. This is the number of successes. And then across the top, there's some values of p, or our success rates. And based on these values, we can determine the probabilities which are within the table. So in our example, our n is equal to 7. And let's say we're looking for the example where all of the days are windy. We're going to look for x equals to 7 in the second column, then read across until we hit our success rate where p is equal to 0.70. And here we find that our probability, based on all these values, is 0.0824. It's the same that what we've calculated in our Excel spreadsheet. And if we look at this column of values, it's the same as what we calculated here in our spreadsheet. So to recap, now you should be able to calculate binomial distributions in Excel and also be able to read a binomial distribution table.